Welcome to Between Two Pastries. This is Nicole.
Hey everyone, it's Annie.
We are excited for today because we have our very first panel of sports dietitians. Woo woo!
This is gonna be
And
awesome.
yeah, well, it's funny because Annie and I were kind of talking about this, and we always think about like, okay, who do we want to have on? Blah blah blah. And we're like, you know what? We want a panel of sports RDs that hear the same things we do. And we want to make sure that all of our listeners can hear the same messaging. Just
Mhm.
slightly kidding, but slightly not.
Right.
So it's also really great though to get everybody's different perspective on things, points of view. Everybody probably does deal with things a little bit differently. And so anyway, we're here to kind of talk about all of it. And I think our listeners will really enjoy that too. So welcome all of you. We're going to do brief introductions. I'm also including all of their amazing bios in our show notes. So make sure you do check those out because these are all very lovely women, very educated, awesome, super powerful people. So please check them. All right. Up first is Kylie Van Horn. Welcome, Miss Kylie.
Kylie, woo woo.
All right. Kylie is the founder and owner of her sports nutrition business, Fly Nutrition. So dig that name. The first time I heard that, I'm like, she is so on point. Which helps runners, triathletes, cyclists, and skiers to learn not only the why, but the how behind fueling the performance. Welcome, Kylie. And Kylie, you reside in Aspen, right?
Just outside of Aspen.
Cool. Yeah, because in your bio, you're like, we like to play in Aspen. And so I was thinking, do you live there? Do you just like
Definitely
play?
not. If I had $13 million to buy the average price home, maybe, but
well, I was thinking too, because I'm like, wow, Aspen just sounds so like, whoa,
yeah, no, that's not my scene necessarily.
Super cool that you get to play there though. So I do love that for sure. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, welcome, Kylie, and sweet Miss Sarah. Sarah, I just had a chance. Sarah and I kind of connected. Was it this summer we connected or fall? It was something like that for the first time.
It was this fall, I think.
Yeah. So and as soon as I met her too, I was just like, oh my gosh, I am asking her to be on this panel too. So Sarah, welcome. You came from Utah, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, I moved out from Salt Lake City to Wisconsin this summer.
Wow, I know. So how has it been so far?
It's very different. Yeah, it's
right.
hard to compare, but I'm not here to compare the two states. But I'm finding things that I love. There's so much more recreation than I think people give Wisconsin credit for. So I'm really finding those fun places and spaces to also play outside like Kylie does too, but a little different than Aspen, I would say.
Yeah, no, but that's so cool. And I really appreciate the props from Milwaukee. So, I mean, it's nice to hear outsiders come in and be like, yeah, this is actually kind of cool. So yeah, we like it too. So Sarah Hellring is the head performance dietitian for Exos Ballpark Commons, which is a new complex here in the Franklin area of Wisconsin, a sports performance institute that provides all sports wellness services under one roof, from training to physical therapy to sports nutrition, which is awesome. So hoping you're having a good time with that as well. And welcome.
And then we've got Miss Heidi Strickler. So I met Heidi kind of virtually, more so in the social media world, and love what she posts, loves what she has to say. It's been really cool following her journey, which I'm sure she'll have time to talk about, because her journey started in a different way than just, I'm just going to go to school to be a dietitian. So Heidi is a sports dietitian. So she's an RD. She's a certified specialist in sports dietetics. So like Nicole, she's a CSSD. That's a very high ranking with certification in our world. And then she's also has a metabolic efficiency training specialist certification, a MET certification. She has her master's in sports nutrition from Liverpool John Moores University, which is in England, which is really cool. I wish I had that, because I have a master's, but I would wish it were from England. That's pretty cool. It doesn't matter where in England, just says England.
Yeah, right.
It's pretty awesome. But she works with athletes of all types, eating disorders, plant-based, everything in her own practice. So welcome, Heidi. She does live in Seattle, which is really awesome. Thank you for getting up super early this morning if you
you're
were
early,
not already
girl.
up.
Thank you. Gosh.
Very dark outside.
Yeah. I can
So
only
I have to
imagine.
come up for a few hours.
So we are so glad to have you and everyone here today for this panel. So thank you.
Awesome, guys. So gosh, there's so much that I know that we really like want to talk about and what have you. Annie, what do you think we should start with? I'm kind of thinking like,
I'm like starstruck a little bit that we have this right
I
now,
know,
to be
it's
totally
so
honest.
fun. Well, because everybody has such great experience and it's awesome. It really feels great.
So I'll be totally honest. Here's where I want to start. I think we have to bring up supplements, and I'll say that broad
Yeah, I guess
sense.
we're really kicking it off right away.
We're gonna just start with particular supplements in the form of green powders that athletes feel they have to take. And I don't know if you guys see this regularly. Certainly on the collegiate to professional side of strength sports, your soccer, your baseball, your basketball, you don't see this stuff anywhere. This is like its own little niche in the endurance world, with specifically runners spilling over into triathletes and ski, all of those types of endurance sports. So to kind of kick it off with thoughts and feelings on that, what do you tell athletes? What's your experience with it? I'm constantly finding myself kind of on the defense, like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you adding this while it improves my performance? Says who? Because you didn't finish that race and you didn't do this, and it's the same as that, so I'm just curious what your thoughts are on powders and potions and supplements.
And your approach.
What's your approach? Who wants to kick it off? Sarah, go ahead. Do you have any experience with this?
Yeah, I can start us off. I definitely do. I worked in the collegiate space prior to coming to the Sports Performance Institute, and it was really widespread used. I worked with cross country and track specifically, and at least in my case, the athletes that I worked with, I saw a lot of them using it as kind of the default instead of focusing on other lifestyle behaviors, habits, different things that there's so much we could work on together. It became kind of that crutch, if you will, as kind of that catch-all, right? Of, it'll fix everything for me. This is what I want to primarily use. I feel it working. And then we dig a little bit deeper and I'd ask, tell me why you feel it's working. Because I always like to seek understanding. I always am very open-minded. And then we kind of dive deeper and, actually my energy levels aren't that great. And, shoot, I'm actually not finishing like the race that how I wanted to finish, or in the PR that I was hoping for. Or, actually during practice, I haven't been hitting the splits that coach and I outlined at the very beginning of the year, and we're mid-season at this point. And so I saw that quite a bit. And so I think my approach with it was, to hear them out, to, like I said, seek that understanding and make sure that they know that I'm hearing them, I'm trying to understand where they're coming from, but then opening up that door to why isn't this kind of our main focal point, and how we can go down all these other avenues that'll lead to more of that long-lasting, sustainable change and peak in performance that we're looking for. So I think just meeting them where they're at, but then also, bringing in that influx of other ways and other ideas of going about it that are going to allow for that positive change they're looking for in performance was really helpful in those athletes' cases, and making sure that we're not just setting our sights on this one magical thing, because there is no one magical thing.
Absolutely. No, and that's such a good point, but it's also nice how, you're also able to kind of, without even saying so, like, you're believing in the placebo effect, or, you're trying to, give this thing way more power than it has at all. And, so that's cool. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Kylie, do you see this in the Colorado scene quite often?
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is a lot of podcasts and people are being endorsed by certain companies that I'm not going to name because they have a lot of money.
Right.
Well, they have a lot of money, so I'm like, oh, well, they're being, they're supporting these podcasts and helping them make money and survive, but at the same time, then it's like causing more people to hear about these powders and then think that they're like a cure-all for everything. And my biggest issue is that, if we're taking something like that with high amounts of, antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals, like what is that doing physiologically, especially if we don't have blood work done and we don't know what's like one thing could interact with another thing. And so that, and then the herbal piece, like a lot of them have some herbs in them that are maybe questionable. People don't think about medication interactions. So it's definitely a common question that I get with with a lot of athletes that we're working with. But I try to, if people have a better understanding, I think, of like why we're maybe questioning them using that, kind of like Sarah was saying, like, why are you using it, and having them examine why they're using it and looking at their lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. And then that gets them thinking, like, do I really need this? And also, is it maybe causing like an imbalance somewhere else that I didn't think about?
Yeah, and that is such a good point. And I also like, I love that you brought up, and I think this is kind of the main thing for all supplements in general, or for a lot of things that are just out there. Seriously, it is all about marketing. The more marketing that they have, like they'll be like, oh, this is a very popular product. Yeah, because people are buying it. It doesn't actually mean, though, that it's doing what it's doing. It's just that you have a sale. And so you can say then, like, oh, look how much impact we have. No, not necessarily. But that isn't what people, see. And to your point, too, of like, these celebrities or athletic celebrities who are potentially, touting this too, or saying, oh, yeah, I use it for sure. No. Yeah.
Well, and I think one more thought on that. It's really, really hard to fight it makes me feel better.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I can't argue that. I can't say that you're not feeling what you're feeling, although feelings are not always truth. It's really hard to fight that. And that's always the last push out of someone is, well, I feel better, so I'm going to keep doing it. So really frustrating. Heidi, what do you see with it, especially when working with plant-based athletes? Do you see people using more powders when plant-based?
I think sometimes, yes. I think it kind of depends on where they're coming from, how educated they are, how much time they've spent deciding to go plant-based.
True.
I mean, yeah. So I think, you have a very wide spectrum there. Is it a high schooler? Is it a college kid? Is it an adult? There's a lot of factors that can play into that. But I think, so one of the first things that I tell, because whether it's the powder, potion, green situation, or other supplements that can kind of come up, which I'm sure all of you will agree is a very almost daily conversation. And yes, like some are medically necessary. If someone comes and ferritin is 3, okay,
sure. Yeah,
we're doing it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But something like some of those green powders and potions, sometimes even potentially like a multivitamin. Again, it depends on the supplement, but I always just kind of say, one, this might just be expensive pee. Like that's kind of how I frame a lot of supplements. And
bottle it up.
From the guise of saying, no, it might not be hurting you, but it also might not be helping you. And this is
expensive.
why.
Yes.
Yeah. And some of the things that Kylie brought up of something like that, where there's so many things in one product and you don't really, it's not like iron deficiency or anemia where we can say, okay, your ferritin is 3, you take an iron supplement, now your ferritin is 16. That is working.
Right.
There's not a lot of really like measurable. Tangible. It's very subjective. And so, again, I kind of give them obviously the choice and say, there's not, the placebo effect. Like if you want to keep taking XYZ and we determine there's no negative benefits, or like there's no negative benefits.
Yeah.
There's no negative side effects. Then it is your choice if you want to be paying this much money for something that might not be helping you. But I do say, oftentimes supplements can be expensive pee. And then, to Kylie's point too, so many have anti-inflammatory, antioxidant properties. And if they're taking it around exercise, and it's blunting their training response, which is the opposite of what we want, depending on where they are in their training phase, right? And so
Right.
I think there's a lot of factors that people don't consider, and athletes and podcast hosts and advertising marketing has so much power.
Oh,
I see it
yeah.
with my young athletes, especially, all the time. Like, this athlete endorses this product, so now I will only use that brand for all of my everything.
Yeah.
Right? I won't use any other brand but that brand for
Mhm.
everything because this athlete uses it. And so
Mhm.
At least I feel like with kids, like, oh, I only have Celsius now. It like fizzles out at some point. But with it, when you have adults doing
Exactly.
it who are like 40s and you're like, oh my God, like you're choosing this for
Mhm.
life. Like you
Mhm.
know, and so oftentimes with kids, it's like, well, you try to educate them and they're not going to listen, but it fizzles right at some point, like they grow out of things. But man, the ultra endurance or just even the running Ironman community, that's a tough crowd. The adults in there can be really tough, superstitious, and very like, this person said this, therefore I'm going to believe it, even though they're not credentialed, they have nothing behind their name. And it's like, then they come to you as the dietitian and they're like, hey, I want your advice. You give them advice and then they say, no, that's not right.
Right.
I don't know if you guys experience that, but
Yeah.
it happens constantly, whether it's weight management or sports, or it doesn't matter. If people don't hear what they want to hear,
Mhm.
it's like you're toast.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Does anyone have any have experience with that?
Yeah, I think, like, I work with high schoolers, a lot of high schoolers, a few college kids, and then adults, kind of two spectrums. And I think from that regard, I feel like in my experience, even though a lot of the high schoolers are struggling with disordered eating disorders, they do tend to be a little bit more open-minded to change
Yeah.
versus the adults who are a
Mhm.
lot more set in their ways or beliefs or whatever it might be. And then I do think, there have been times, I think, where we're talking about whatever topic we're talking about, providing education, like you said, they come, and I even get this off the street. If somebody figures out I'm a dietitian, they start asking all the
Ugh.
questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
And
do
I
you
give them
eat?
an answer, like, what should I do? What do you think about paleo and intermittent fasting, whatever? And I give them an answer they don't want, and all of a sudden they're less interested in the conversation.
Yep.
They
Yep.
bring, oh, but XYZ,
Yep.
and then if it is a client or athlete, maybe down the road, they do try what I suggested, then they come back like, oh my God, thank you so much.
Why did that work?
You're paying me to give you advice.
Right. And
You
I
would
have all
hope
of these
you would get
credentials.
Right. So it's funny. People
Oh
are
my
funny.
God. Yeah.
People are very funny.
Yeah. It's something, all right.
Well, and I think that we also have to keep like repeating like
Mhm.
constantly, like these are not FDA approved. Like there isn't anything that's regulated with it. And of course, if a supplement does need to be used, that, we really want it to be certified through certain, supplemental certification, just at least so we can check for purity, right? Like
Mhm.
let's have there not be any contaminants in here, number one. But like I had a client who said, hey, my doctor, this is what killed me. My doctor recommended this supplement and I looked at it. The website was a completely made up website,
Mm.
completely unreal people, just like photostocked people in it, like saying they're physicians. And there was no way to contact the actual company to like, they were like, oh, offering a 30-day refund or something. There was no way you could contact them. And apparently, I dug a little deeper into this company, and apparently there has been a lot of complaints, but they continue to sell. So because you can't contact the company and you will never get your money back. So it's like, I want people to somehow hear those kinds of things. Like, I don't think you realize it is a multi-billion-dollar business for a reason.
Mhm.
And that's all it is. It's just a business, Do we have benefits? Only if you're, like you were saying, Heidi, low in ferritin. Sure.
Mhm.
But I mean, honestly, and like you were saying too, Kylie, if we're not getting lab work done, there's no point. Like, what's the point?
Mhm.
What's the point? People don't understand that it's like they think that this off weird thing that was found under a rock in Australia is going to like make them, run, 2 seconds faster. I understand if you're going for a medal, you're winning $1 million. Yeah, 2 seconds is going to make a difference. But seriously, for some of these recreational people, come on.
Right.
Off the soapbox. Okay, so
yeah, I know.
it's just like, anyway.
Take a step off.
Yeah. Done. Yeah.
Nicole, what is your next question for our panel?
I would like to know what is the top 3 questions or concerns that you guys hear the most?
Kylie, why don't you kick it off if you're ready?
Top 3. I would say one of them is supplement related. I definitely get a lot of questions about, should I be taking this? What are your thoughts on this? What blood work? I do get people that want to know like what blood work I should get done when we're getting started.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So I feel like that's good. I get a lot of questions, and it might just be like the athletes that we focus on, a lot of questions about how do I adjust my nutrition for different days of training? Because I really want to learn. That's a skill I want to learn, and I don't know that much about it. I just eat the same thing every day.
That's cool. That's a great question.
And then fueling plan questions, like, should I be doing some of my workouts fasted, or should I be pushing the grams of carbs that I'm getting in every hour? Like, I'm getting mixed messaging, so I don't really know what I should be doing. So
Dang,
I don't know
internet.
if that's top 3, but those are 3 that came to mind.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's great. Those are great.
Well, and I do think like either you were saying that pretty awesome, but like I think we get those same questions as well. I know I do, but they're not so nicely worded, or not like, it's very, and not that clients or patients are attacking in any way, but more so there's so much fear behind it, in the sense of like, are you telling me to do the right thing?
Absolutely.
And because I hear this over here, this person, social media, whatever, saying this, but then in your podcast or your book or you say this, and then I listen to, and it's just like this battle that they're having, and it's really fascinating to kind of watch it in front of you, unfold, because there's so much confusion, which brings out so much fear that I don't think people realize is happening. And then of course this little bit of defensiveness that comes with it, right? Of like, I put you in charge of my body, now what's happening? And then you're presenting it as like, people are really curious about it, and this curiosity may not necessarily lead to follow through. That's usually.
I think it's like a certain population too. I hate to like box people up, but certain population of people, and we work with a lot of like disordered eating and eating disorders, and sometimes actually those clients are more open-minded with like wanting to hear what your thoughts are and like really listening to you. I found and so maybe not arguing as much. And then I mean, I'm not going to say that there aren't groups that we don't get clients that argue with us, but at the same time, like I do want to hear other people's perspective and where they're getting that from, and then present what we know and see what they think. For sure. Haven't had anyone really like shut down and say like, nope, not listening to you at all, like not gonna follow what you say. I think some people just want to like are curious, and or maybe they've been doing something for a really long time and they're like, actually I don't know if I'm feeling that good doing this, or I'm getting injured all the time. So a lot of people, I think, when they reach out to someone like us, they're maybe they might be at a breaking point, or like had something go wrong that they're like, wait, I actually do need help here. So I kind of viewing it in that sense, and trying to also, be a good listener and that sort of thing, I think is good.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Cool.
Absolutely.
Sarah, how about you?
Yeah, Kylie, that's great. I definitely get a lot of similar questions to you, but for us right now, we have a lot of soccer and baseball athletes. So I get a lot of questions about travel nutrition because they are
Nice.
going to tournaments all the time. Baseball is really big here in the Wisconsin area. That's something that I was not familiar with until moving here. And kids are playing year round. They're competing really hard. They're traveling a lot. So it kind of comes from both ways. The kids ask me, but also the parents ask me too, how do we fuel? What do we eat? We're at the ballpark and we have limited options. And so just kind of helping them take a step back and think about small but creative ways of, well, can we bring like a cooler? Do we have access to that? And do we have time to plan ahead or do we not? And if we don't, okay, so maybe we have to go through like quicker options, but let's kind of look at the area you're in and let me help you find those options, right? That are going to meet that pregame meal need, as well as help your kiddo, your athlete, recover well, as well too. So that's been a pretty big one. Of late, this season is obviously done for now. So I'm sure we'll get more questions about that in the upcoming future. But another big one, of course, is supplementation too. A lot of pre-workout is used in this area.
Yes.
A lot. And
so bad.
Yes, it's not it's not great. I consistently hear of a couple of brands that are not my favorite by any stretch or means, but I educate on that and I talk about that and talk about just the reliance on pre-workout and why that might be a red flag, for us and how there are other strategies to approach that instead of having to buy these expensive powders and stock up on that and bring that with us to every practice, every game. So we do a lot of education surrounding that at the Performance Institute. And it has been really cool to see the kids, as I think both Kylie, Heidi have spoken to that, just they're a little more open-minded. And so getting them at that age where they're, they're youth, they're teen, and they're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, Sarah's telling me this. I didn't know this before. Let me try eating some carbs, having, some water with electrolytes. They feel so good. And it's so fun to have them come back to me and be like, I felt really good today at practice. I'm like, I saw you. Yeah, you were running the bases really well. Your power and velocity was incredible with that hit. So it is fun to see those things that we talk about translate to success, and I'll have that open-mindedness that sometimes can be hard to find with different populations.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
That's awesome.
I
love that.
Yeah. Well, and like those pre-workout things, those things drive me crazy.
Yeah, just get a good night's sleep.
Get a good night's sleep because that, like you said, I love that you're like, hey, let's talk about maybe why you feel like you need it. And the first thing I was thinking of too is like these kids have practice until like 10 o'clock at night. They still have to do homework, and then like they're like, when is anybody sleeping anymore? I mean, it's terrible.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah,
I'd want a pre-workout then too. I mean, that's what adults call coffee. It's the same type of driver. Yeah.
But I mean, it's just, those pre-workouts are simply like stimulant on the highest level possible. They try to pack as much caffeine as, I don't even think they care if it's safe or not. It's just sort of like, we've got the most caffeine. I mean, everybody just wants this big hit. And I think that's kind of what I also find too, is like, they want the hit. It's like, I need that hit. Because it's crazy.
Oh, for sure. I had an athlete the other day tell me like, oh, I really like the tingliness that I feel after taking this, this supplement. And I was like, let's step aside and just have a chat real quick, just about, what you're experiencing, why you're experiencing, just so the science behind it and what's kind of going on in your body. And, maybe there's other methods we can talk about together. Explore.
Why do you need to feel tingly?
Yeah. Why do you like that? Okay.
They keep it fun.
Yeah.
Heidi, what 3 questions do you typically get asked?
So yeah, I kind of have, I guess maybe like 4 subsets of athletes that I work with. One is generally like younger high school, some college, mostly high school athletes with disordered eating, RED-S, eating disorders, amenorrhea, and then adult endurance athletes in general, mostly trail runners and runners for athletes, plant-based athletes, and then female-bodied athletes doing menstrual cycle stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think kind of each of those subsets maybe has, obviously all have their own questions, but I think, I mean, I, at this point, most of my clients are young athletes with eating disorders. So either parents will reach out to me and say, parents, coaches, or the athlete themselves, which I get really excited about when the actual athlete has either heard me talk or is aware of something, has let them know that missing a period is not healthy, that despite it being common, that it's not normal.
That's right.
And so I have really seen that upswing of athletes reaching out to me, and then, you know, parents and coaches, hey, I've got an athlete. And so I think, yeah, awareness of signs of RED-S and the fact that, oh, missing a period is actually a problem and not a badge of honor.
Yep. Yep.
Big quotes. So that's a really big one, is I've lost my period. I need you to help me get it back. Is a big one. Sometimes parents will bring up other signs of disordered eating. And then definitely a lot of, similar to what Kylie said, I feel like people come to us when something is no longer working, broken, you know, when the system is no longer functioning, or they're realizing that something needs to change. So lab work, they've gotten, you know, anemia, iron deficiency, very, very common, sometimes iron overload, or just really misunderstanding of what's been going on, maybe mismanagement of iron stuff, miseducation or lack thereof with doctors and iron. But that's a really, really common one. Youth, adults, across all sports, plant-based, not plant-based, gender is irrelevant. Like, I have a lot of people come to me with funky lab work, particularly iron is the most common, no doubt.
Yeah.
And then I would say the other one is information around fueling strategies for racing, ultra racing, because maybe their stomach blew up, or they have a history of GI issues at every race, or you know, they really want to take the next step in their trail and ultra or just general like performance. And so kind of recognizing, hey, I think nutrition is maybe something I could change. And a lot of people will come, I just want you to tell me like that specific race nutrition. And usually I say, well, you know, ultimately, like, what you're doing in a race is a very, very minute percentage of the training. And so it's like, okay, let's take a step back and actually look at, are you just getting enough in your body day in, day out, and breaking it down like that. Okay, like, kind of have some baseline things I start with, and we get into the timing, and then it's that kind of peri-workout, peri-exercise nutrition. Then we get into race-specific fueling, right? So you have those tiers of the pyramid. But I think, yeah, those are probably the three most common, or three very common things that people will come to me for.
It's awesome. I love it. Everybody kind of like deals with similar and different things. I think it's very cool. And that's the whole thing. Like, everything is so, I mean, there's so much to cover. Nutrition is related to everything, you know? That's the
purity.
So awesome.
Do you guys ever see, or do you recommend people have different carbohydrates for racing, or, you know, pre, during, post racing, different types of carbohydrates? I think recently there's this surge of, you know, slow carbohydrates, of no carbohydrates, of not processed carbohydrate, you know, that it's this natural thing, but then what does natural mean to people? That can vary. So just in general, what is your typical, you know, recommendation for, not necessarily in numbers, but more so types of carbohydrates that you're recommending in the race scene? Because I think that people really struggle, and you're seeing a lot of races, aid stations, where at least I know when I run to that aid station, I'm like, I got to go to my backpack, because this is not anything that I should be eating right now, in the terms of like, there's fiber, or there's, you know, things that aren't necessarily, you know, just it's an alternative to what I would recommend to someone. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on types of carbohydrates you're recommending. Kylie, what are you doing?
So I think, there's a lot of misconceptions around especially things like fruit. Like a lot of my athletes will be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna grab fruit at aid stations. I'm like, okay, well, that might not set you up very well for a little bit later down the road.
Yeah.
I do always like for people to obviously like be practicing things throughout their training, and thinking about like what is the race that they're doing, and practicality for that in regards to the choices that they're making in regards to sugars, because I think a lot of people that are training maybe for a marathon, they're hearing messaging about real foods or whole foods, and a lower glycemic option for that would not be my choice. Like for like even like a Spring Energy or something might not be my top choice for somebody running a marathon, because I feel like it's not going to give you as quick of an energy source. Whereas I might offer a suggestion of more high glycemic gels in that situation. And then like for my ultra crowd, like just being aware, more awareness around like which foods contain fructose, which foods contain glucose, etc. It's really been interesting. I just started with a client that has a sucrose or CSID, if you guys have heard of CSID.
Wow, yeah, for sure.
So they can't break down sucrose
that's
or
big.
starches, which has been for me honestly like a huge learning experience as well for this like ultra endurance person. It's really, really difficult for this person, but it also is like making me examine every like composition of everything. And it's making me more aware of that. And I think that honestly, just having some more sense of what the breakdown of different foods looks like, and what the breakdown of different sports nutrition products looks like, is really helpful when trying to like put together a plan that maybe makes sense for someone in their training and racing goals. So I don't know if that fully answers your question.
Yeah. Well, and I think you have to consider age too. I mean, if someone is premenopausal or already there, that might be a different carbohydrate composition than Heidi than your high schoolers. Like these might be very different things. And I think I was in the habit, and I have to kind of hit myself when I say it. People ask what I might train with, and I eat whole foods. I interpret that as I'm eating candy. That's a whole food, not a gel.
Yeah, right.
And to people are hearing me saying like I'm eating a whole food, being earth and fruit and nuts, and that's what they're hearing. And I was like, no, not even a little bit. I'm just saying I'm eating real food as opposed to a gel. So there's like this interpretation of the words real, natural, whole that are, to me, I was like, my mind was blown. I was like, no, that's totally not what I'm doing. I'm like eating candy and Twinkies. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So it's really an interesting play on words sometimes, until, like you said, Kylie, you get in there and you're looking at compositions and you're looking at labs and age and all of the things to kind of determine what's appropriate for this person and their GI tract too. Heidi, before I ask you, Sarah, Heidi, I want you to comment on this, because you also work in the running ultra endurance world. So what are you doing with carbs? What kind of carbs? What types?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely touched on a couple very important points, and similar to that, like whole food. I mean, I do tell a lot of my athletes, a lot of sports nutrition products are just expensive versions. Like Twix blocks are expensive gummy bears.
Yes.
Something like that. And so I think there is like,
and just throw some salt on them. That's fine.
Like, I think that is one thing, running, people say like, and this is just another tangent. So I'm going to try and not soapbox myself on another soapbox and stay on this topic, but it's a very privileged sport in many. It has
sure. So
people are like, well, I can't afford. I mean, a Spring, like if I were to train and race on Spring Energy, I wouldn't be able to afford rent.
I know, right. I know, totally.
So I think just like recognizing, okay, like this is marketing. I talk to my athletes regardless of age or what they're dealing with. Like it's building blocks. Your body needs building blocks. Your body does not know the difference between a Cliff Shot and a gummy bear.
Nice.
And so it just needs access to building blocks and energy.
Awesome.
I had a very interesting conversation. So there's that. Then there's the marketing. You've talked about things like words like natural and organic, and usually products like that incorporate things like agave and honey, which are crazy high in fructose and are really going to jack up your stomach if you rely on mostly fructose-based products if you are someone in a female body.
Right.
Because female-bodied athletes process fructose less well than male-bodied athletes.
Yeah.
And so then you can get into that and like the fiber and maybe things like monk fruit and or sugar alcohols, which also are very problematic. And then you like the lower carb things, or even from again, kind of, I talk about building blocks a lot, do a lot of comparison. I was working with a young athlete a couple months ago and eating disorder, kind of disordered eating, but we were talking about expanding her variety before exercise. And she was very, very restrictive and, very like clean. And we kind of just worked on variety, and then I wanted to start experimenting with things that felt a little bit less safe. So I'm an avid Pop-Tart fan for like just in general, but pre-run, during run nutrition, I think they're fantastic.
Yeah.
My running group out here is convinced that we're gonna get like a Pop-Tart sponsorship for our running group because it's fantastic. So I gave a couple recommendations. I said you could try Pop-Tart, you could do like peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you could do Rice Krispie treat, you could do a couple cookies. And she got very uncomfortable for reasons. I asked, what doesn't feel good about doing this, and she was really worried about stomach issues, it ruining her practice, like performance wise, and then judgment from coaches and teammates about eating junk food before practice.
Oh,
totally.
That is a thing.
What'd you have before practice today? And she said a Luna bar. I asked what flavor. And so I pulled up the nutrition facts of that Luna bar on the internet and went and got the Pop-Tart box from my
Nice.
And I am not joking you. Gram for gram. Calories, carbs, added sugar, protein, and fat were identical between a Pop-Tart and a Luna bar.
Sweet.
And I told this to her. And so with the point being, it's marketing. This is this like healthy female focused bar, protein bar,
shiny label.
And this is like trash junk food that, you shouldn't eat, again, in quotes. And they're literally the same building blocks. Like your body needs energy. So let's just like recognize that you don't like it's marketing, it's money. Like your body just needs building blocks and it doesn't know the difference. And so also just like doing a lot of education around that. And then it's finding what works for the person and knowing that, like how you said, there is a time and a place. Like in a marathon, no, I don't want necessarily an athlete pulling out a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but in an ultra, that might be a great option.
Absolutely.
And so giving them the education of understanding their energy, the energy systems that they're using. And then I always kind of in my practice talk about combining like science and the personal experience in that individual's body, and that kind of puzzle of this is what science says in terms of types of carbs and grams per hour and pre and during. And then this is what works for you and your history. And it's definitely like blending the two. But yeah, that's
so well said.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's great, Heidi.
Oh my God. Sarah, now working with more strength athletes, what do you do for carbohydrate? What recommendations are you doing? More complex carbs? Are you doing more simple? What are you doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I just want to say, Kylie, Heidi, really well said. I still work with runners as well too. I've not done much with ultra runners, but marathon and below. And that's just a big thing to quick touch on, just that education and just reconnecting that mindset that sugar is okay and it's fine to eat and it has a place and it has an importance and why it matters and why it's really valuable to your body. And that, yes, we don't want to try anything new on race day, as we all know, and we want to train our guts. But you know, it's okay to pull out that Rice Krispie. It's all right to like pull out that Pop-Tart, and you don't need to run X amount of miles to, as to use quotations like you said, Heidi, to deserve it, to enjoy it, to have it. That's been huge with runners that I've been working with here, just kind of reconnecting that mindset and mentality. So I did want to touch on that, but just second and third, everything that the two of you said, all of that I do with runners and athletes here. And I think it's such valuable education, because there's been so much misinformation and misleading of what's natural, what's a whole food, etc. So really clarifying that out is so critical and so key. So keep up the work you both are doing. That's awesome in your spaces. Because I do see more of that soccer, more of that baseball athlete as well too. Still focusing on carbs, you know, with them as well. You know, it may be a different amount of carbs, right? We may be competing at a different intensity than your runner, your ultra runner. So it's a different sport, it's a different energy system at different times, but still focusing on why carbs matter and what carbs are important to keep in our bag, to keep on the sidelines, is really huge. I had a parent, when I had brought up, you know, having a fruit snack pack in their bag. Why would we do that? That's awful. Why would I feed my kid fruit snacks?
Oh my gosh.
That's, you know, the clean eating kind of thing. Well, that's not clean eating. We don't do that in this household. And so just to have that conversation with them of exactly what Heidi said. I mean, what is a fruit snack?
No, it's exactly what Heidi did.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, I'm so
It makes me want to vomit and
I know.
I
Fruit
know.
snacks. That's 60 calorie fruit snack pack.
But that alone
Yes.
is it's a true sickness. I mean, it is growing, it is getting so bad. I did not mean to cut you off, Sarah, but you just said said such an excellent point. Okay, go ahead.
No. I love the feedback. I love the conversation running it. No, Heidi, it made me feel just so ill to my core just to hear that and to say that right in front of your athlete too. It's just, it just
You don't eat
really
that.
The
poor
messaging.
Yes, the messaging, and they're young, and you know how that gets ingrained and taken, you know, sometimes more internally than we think with those offhanded comments. But just, you know, being able to reframe that conversation, redirect it with that parent. And I did the same thing as Heidi. I pulled out a honey stinger packet versus a fruit snack, and we looked at that together because parents thought honey stinger, you know, was so much better, so much cleaner eating than a fruit snack was. And so we compared it, we looked at it, we talked through the different type of sugars. This was a female athlete as well too, so considering the type of sugars with for females as well. And so, you know, that's been really valuable, I think, when you just give that right away example, when you have something to compare it to, and when you have those products on hand to just really re-educate, reconnect that mindset, that mentality, and hopefully do some good, not only for the athlete, but also for the parent that's involved in that situation. So I would say, you know, most of it still applies to my athletes as well too, that Kylie and Heidi spoke to. Again, it just comes down to maybe difference in timing and frequency, and then of course amount, but all the same, and second what you all say for sure.
That is awesome. Well, we're definitely at time, guys. This is so great. I mean, there's so many other questions that I
We need to have a part 2.
Pull out there. We probably should have a part 2. I mean, you guys are
encore.
Part 2,
that's so
encore,
cool.
yes.
Yeah, really, really cool. So I wanted to get into another big question, but let's maybe save
Write it
that.
down. Write it down.
I will, definitely. And so we do like to always end by asking our guests what their favorite food is. So in 2 seconds, what is your favorite food?
Favorite food.
Kylie.
Ice cream.
Yeah,
Ooh.
girl. Sweet. Heidi?
Sarah? Heidi?
Oh. Tacos, ice cream, peanut butter.
All
Isn't that
together?
No.
So is that a
all on the
Choco
same
Taco?
tier? Yeah. Oh, Choco Tacos? Do you guys remember those?
Oh my God, yes.
Oh,
I got one from the ice cream man a couple summers ago,
So like
but it was
recent.
an experience. It was underwhelming.
Oh no. Oh,
Well,
so
they
it's-
probably changed it.
Keep
They
it in the
probably changed
childhood.
They
it. Yeah.
must have. The nostalgia was nice, but it wasn't
Yes.
quite as
Oh my God.
robust as I remember it being.
Dang it. Yeah.
Oh, bummer.
Got it. Sarah, what about you?
Oh, peanut butter, hands down. I love it. I could put it in everything and
On
anything. Soup, smoothie. I mean, just
Soup.
oatmeal, anything. Let's go.
Yes,
Yeah,
because then it's warm and
African
melty.
peanut soup,
It's
yes.
warm and milky.
Exactly.
Yes, you're correct. I must try this.
Yes. I'll give you a recipe, please do.
Yes. All right. Very good.
That's awesome. Oh, you guys, thanks so much for your time today. This is so fantastic, super, super fun. And we talked about so much great information for our listeners. So thank you so much for contributing. And yes, let's get another
Encore.
book. So woohoo.
Yep.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.